Have you ever experienced one of those cold winter nights, freezing outside, not doing much in the house, and you just did not have a blanket? Well, there's nothing you could use better during that time than one of your own handmade quilts. Quilts keep you warm. They just give you this warm, fuzzy feeling during the winter, and there's nothing better than to know how to make your own. The first step is that you want to choose a pattern or a fabric, or a pattern and a fabric. You can go online to do this. You can do it. You can look through books. You can also talk to people who have made them also. And you want to be careful selecting your pattern or your fabric, because your pattern can affect what you choose for your fabric, and your fabric can affect what you choose for your pattern. And you want those to look good together and nice. The next step is some quilters prefer to pre-wash their fabric. People who pre-wash it, they say that it prevents the color from running and it prevents it from shrinking further in while you're using it. Those who don't say that it's easier to cut and it's better to get started because it's not wet. And but whatever you do, you want to treat it the same way. Whether you wash it all, you need to wash it all, or if you don't wash it, don't wash it. The next thing you do is you cut your pattern. This is a very, 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 very important step. You need to be very precise, because if you're not, it could affect how the blanket will end up. The squares won't go good together. They just won't be straight. It won't line up correctly. The best thing you can use is rotary scissors, and there is a self-help mat that you can get, and there is actually a quilting ruler you can use, and this helps you get the job done precise and get it done right. Your next step is that you sew each block using a 1/4 seam, and you can mark your sewing machine with a piece of tape so that you can do it accurately, but some sewing machines have a little foot on it that you can use and set that as at a 1/4 inch foot. You want to sew the pieces together so that you are always sewing in a straight line. It's difficult to do corners, and there's a lot of different techniques to do corners. But once the blocks are made, you need to decide if you want to do a border. Here you get many strips of fabric, and you put them all around the blocks if you want the borders around the blocks, and you sew them to the outer edge. It's a great way to use up the square footage if you don't have enough blocks, or you don't want to use as many blocks to make the size of quilt that you have. What you do is you cut long strips of them, and you also want to turn your blanket so that you are, again, sewing in a straight line. The next thing you want to do is select your batting. It comes in several different shapes and sizes, and depending on how thick you want your blanket or how thin you want it, how much warmth you want it to give you, this is where that is. You select your thickness and your size and all that in your batting. And what you do with your batting is you iron the top and the bottom of it. After you do that, you select your backing material. It's usually a large solid piece of fabric, and if you want to use it as part of the edge of the quilt, then you want to leave several inches on each side of the quilt, in each direction, so that you have that. The next thing you do is that you baste the 3 layers together. If you bought fusible batting, then all you have to do is iron the 3 layers together. And if you bought regular batting, what you're going to have to do is lay the 3 layers on top of each other and sew them together using contrasting thread. You want to start in the middle so that you can work your way out, and as you work your way out, you will smooth all the wrinkles out and make sure that they are all out of the way. Your next step is you remove the batting if necessary. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can, and you finish the edges. You want to trim all 3 layers to where they have straight edges. And what you can do is they have bias tape that you buy, and you put it on the edges and you fold it on both sides, and then you iron that on to make the edges even straight. Then you sew the fabric all the way around, and again, the corners are a little tricky. So to finish your quilt, you want to just work with the edges, and you might have to sew and re-sew and tuck fabric in to make sure that the edges look all nice and pretty. The last thing this is optional, the last thing you can do is sign your name on the back corner of it. Sign your name, your date, and if you want to put where you got the fabric from and all that, that's all good too. So again, to make this, you want to choose your pattern and your fabrics. Then you want to pre-wash it if you want to. You don't have to pre-wash it depending on how fast you want to get started. Then you want to cut your pattern and make sure those are all straight. And then you're going to sew each block. And once those are made, you'll decide if you want a border. You don't have to have a border. You can just use blocks all the way around. Then you're going to want to select your batting. See how thick or thin you want it, and then your backing material. And once you get those 3 layers together, you want to baste the 3 layers together. Depending on what batting you use, that's going to depend on how you baste the 3 together. Then you need to remove the basting if necessary, and straighten the edges. And to finish it all up, sign that name of yours and get it out there. This behind me is a quilt that my great-great-grandma made, and it's special to me because on those cold nights, this is the quilt I go for. We have many different ones throughout our house, but this one just seems to be my favorite, and I'll probably take it on with me when I move from my house. It's really special to me, and it just keeps me all warm.